So, from April next year, all new BBC programmes will be required to meet a 20% diversity quota as part of a drive to tackle inequality in the industry. The corporation's move comes as a direct response to the Black Lives Matter campaign. The initiative will require programme makers to demonstrate that at least 1/5 of the production team, writers, directors and crew are from diverse backgrounds in order to get a show commissioned. The BBC's outgoing Director General Tony Hall announced that the Beeb would spend £100 million of its TV show budget over the next 3 years on diverse and inclusive content. This is an awful lot of money. Is it positive discrimination? Does it work? Is it the right way ahead? Let's speak with Michael Soyannwo, who is the filmmaker and CEO of Rockindale Productions. Michael, good afternoon to you, sir. Good idea?
It's a step in the right direction. I mean, in answer to one of your earlier points about has been a rise of black and mixed race people in front of the camera, yeah, I would take that on board. That's fair enough. But what you didn't mention is how many black-owned production companies have had their work commissioned by the BBC in the past 10 years. And I would say the answer is next to none. I mean, and that's where the real money is made in television, as you well know. How many writers have had their dramas commissioned in the past 10 years? I would say there's been a few, but nowhere near as many is in proportion to the amount of black writers that have been trying to get their work even heard on the BBC. There's no comparison.
Why do you think, I mean, what would, bearing in mind these production companies exist, I mean, you are a filmmaker with your own company,
yeah.
What is happening then? You take an idea to, say, the BBC. Do they say, oh, God, here comes a black guy, I'm not going to commission that?
Well, I would say this is systemic racism within the media, and in that context, is that when you take a project to the BBC as a black writer, they make the instant judgment that what you're giving them is a project that's going to have an all-black cast, that's going to appeal to an all-black audience. They think it's urban. You get that term straight away. Oh, it's urban. Is it like Top Boy? That's the first thing that you have to deal with. I mean, they think that there are certain types of drama where they're quite happy to facilitate if it's an urban drama or if it's a documentary on the life and times of Martin Luther King or Stevie Wonder or something like that. But outside of that, they won't give you the time of day. Now, my argument, you know, if you look at a drama like Top Boy was written by a white Irishman. Yeah. If I'd gone to the BBC and said, right, I want to write a drama and against the backdrop of the troubles in Northern Ireland, they wouldn't give me the time of day.
Because they would assume that could only be written by somebody who had a dog in the race, as it were.
They wouldn't think I was qualified. They wouldn't think I was qualified.
But if I were to go to, I don't know, to the BBC, I'm a white guy, by the way, and I were to say, you know, I want to make a documentary about Soweto or something like that, would they not have the same kind of response?
No, they wouldn't, because
an African filmmaker with experience of that world?
No, they wouldn't be, because there have been lots and lots of production companies that have made African documentaries that have had no black people in the production in terms of the writing and the producing it, you know, year in, year out. So that, you know, that's, you know, it's.
But what I'm struggling with, Michael, I mean, we both work in the media, okay? We know, you know, we've probably been to some of those strange, you know, poncy old bars as well, at different times, and, you know, bumped into the same kind of people. I would struggle, when I think of the people I know and have met who are commissioners, to think that any of these people are inherently racist. I mean, they might be stupid, but I don't think they're racist.
What the problem is that the BBC is wholly inaccessible to people outside a certain circle of influence. So if you are a well-known production company, whether it's a Tiger Aspect or one of those, once you're in, and they trust you. And if you deliver content that works and you know, drama that sells and drama that does very well, you're in. But if you're an outsider, and if you're a young production company, or dare I say, if you're a black production company, they are inherently suspicious.
But I get that with, I mean, mates of mine who, yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, but I wonder, and again, I can't prove or disprove, but mates of mine that have small production companies who have tried, and they would cite exactly the, hat trick, the list goes on. We all know the big kind of dozen or so, and they keep getting commissioned. I always think it's incredibly lazy on behalf of the BBC and others, because they think, well, rather than bothering to look around and shop around and see if there's some real quality out there, we know that if we're going to go with the Hat Trick Boys or the Tiger Aspect lot, we're going to probably get something that's okay. So it's kind of easy for them more than anything else. And so lots of young filmmakers and directors and writers do get missed out. And, mates of mine, frankly, all different colours, Michael, would tell the same story, including white people.
But the other point is that in order to get something even to pitch something on the BBC, you've got a little pitch thing where you go and pitch your ideas. But to register for BBC Pitch, you have to meet certain criteria, i.e. you have to have a project already made and commissioned by two projects by another broadcaster. So if you're a new production company, you can't even get on the pitch.
No, I get that, but that applies to anybody, doesn't it?
No, that applies to anybody. But as I said, it's particularly hard for young production sort of black-owned production companies, because in order for them to get work made, they need investment, and there are very few investment companies that are going to put their money into a new production company with no track record.
And in terms of experience of young black artists, and when I say artists, I'm talking directors and writers and people like that. I mean, I come at this, I'm fed up with saying this on the radio because it sounds as if I talk about nothing else. But, I come at this from a class perspective. So a working class lad trying to get into the industry I'm eventually found myself in is still quite unusual. And I find there's a real lack of diversity in that, and this new initiative is meant to sort of partly address that as well. When it comes to young black working class kids, I'd imagine that becomes even more problematic. And, I think back, I wasn't around at the time, I'm sure you weren't either, but when White City was built at the BBC, one of the things they said, White City being, quite a challenging council estate right on the back of it there, loads of working class kids, black and white, will be filling this building here. And, of course, it took nothing for the Oxbridge lot to pitch up and suddenly just hire their mates, and we've been in that place ever since.
Yeah, and I would accept the class issue is as important, because I think that white working class kids and black working class kids do face the same problem in breaking into industries, particularly within media and journalism. It's extremely difficult if you don't know the right people, because it's very much who you know. And once you're in, you're in. And then that's fine.
And they will absolutely love you once you're in and sort of proven, and then you'll be taken out by some posh people, and they will think it's fabulous they've got this council estate boy out with them for the for the evening. Nonetheless, this is ultimately about positive discrimination, though, isn't it? There's no other way to slice it. Is that the way we have to go then?
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember I was fortunate enough to be in the company of Quincy Jones years ago, and he was talking about
that's the biggest name drop we're going to get this afternoon. You know that.
Yeah, but he was talking about the problems about trying to make black films in Hollywood, and he made the point that in order to really understand a certain lifestyle or a certain culture or style of life, you have to live it. And a lot of the people that run Hollywood never have. And it's the same in television.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
In order to understand that type of lifestyle and that type of perspective, you have to live it, and they haven't. And so they think, all right, we'll spend $100 million and we'll make diverse content. But it's got to be the right type of diverse content made by the right people. There's no point putting a black person in the head of diversity for the sake of that black person is middle class, has gone to the private schools and has the same network of content as a white person would. There's no point. They've defeated the object, and they've done the BBC that mistake before.
I mentioned that at the beginning. I remember when Greg Dyke, I think it was, described the BBC as hideously white, and he made the not unreasonable point that when he walks around the BBC, the only black faces he sees have a broom in their hand or they're serving dinner. And I got the point he was trying to make, but of course what then happened, they tried to recruit lots of non-white faces, and they just got the middle class equivalents of their white counterparts, which was no diversity at all, really.
And it's almost as like the minute that they get into the BBC, they become one of the natives, so to speak. And, their perspective isn't any more black than the person that they
I get that. Can we make a film between us, Michael, called Brixton, the Untold Story, brackets, an urban story? And that way,
Well, it's funny that you used to say that, because one of the projects we're working on is about in the early 80s, but I'm not going to say any more about that.
BBC 3, that's where you have to go now.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Good man. Michael, nice to talk, sir. Thank you. Michael Soyannwo, who is a filmmaker and CEO of Rockindale Productions.